this white rim that's going around the side of the boat. Please keep everything you want to return with in that white rim. Apart from that, is anybody claustrophobic or scared of the dark? No. Well, we'll see, won't we, when we set off? Right then, guys, at this point you're probably wondering what on earth you're doing down the dark tunnel with the guy you've just met. It's a very valid question, but I'm going to skip straight past it because we're currently drifting down the remains of an 18th century lead mine. Now, it started in 1771 and ended in 1791. Now, it only lasted for 20 years. That's because it was a massive financial disaster. Now, the boss put roughly about £12,000 into the mine. He got about £3,000 out. In today's money, that's about a loss of £8 million. And that explains the extortionate ticket prices upstairs. They're still trying to make the money back. Tell my boss I said that. Now, as we travel down the tunnel, we're coming up to the first of 3 of the veins of lead that the mine has found down here. The first one is called the Little Winster vein. It was mined out by a 7-year-old boy that'd been working down here for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. He only had 2 hours off on Sunday for church. He'd be mining with a pickaxe in one hand, a shovel in the other, a bucket around his neck and a candle in his mouth made out of a substance called tallow. Now, tallow isn't your average candle wax you find at home, no. It's made out of pig's fat, fire ash. Simple sort of ingredients to what you find in a McDonald's burger. It's pretty grim stuff. Now, coming up to where Winston would have been working, it'd be coming up on your guys' left-hand side in the next 10 seconds or so. Now, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in the whole, you guys, left-hand side, here, guys. So, this is where little Winston, the 7-year-old boy, would have been working in that hole. Now then, guys, coming up to a point called the halfway house. Does anyone want to give me a wild guess why it's called the halfway house? Oh, for the simple, logical explanation. It sits directly 1/3 of the way down the tunnel. Now, here's a bit of a trick question. It's my apologies. It's called the halfway house because it's named after the miners' favourite pub, the halfway house, which they would have been drinking in at any opportunity they got. Most of the time, the miners would have turned up to work drunk. They did this because they made a friend in the pub, a doctor. The doctor told the miners the cure for lead poisoning was beer. Now, they loved this idea so much they were drinking all the time, but it also turns out that that doctor was also the landlord of the pub at the time as well. So made him a very rich man. Halfway house down here was dug out so the miners had somewhere to store their tools, to store their beer. They also used it as a safety hole to get away from something, which I'll expand on further down the system. We use the halfway house for a very different purpose nowadays, because directly behind me there is another boat. And that boat wants to get past us. Does anyone see an issue with this? Yes, it's a bit of a tight squeeze either side of the boat to get past. So we're going to pull into the halfway house. It's sort of a little lay-by. We're going to pull in there, and we'll let the boat go past, and we'll be on our way again. Now, a little bit of a word of warning. about that other boat. The people on it, we don't know how long they've been down here for. So as we go past them, do not look them in the eyes. Do not speak to them. Don't make any sudden movements. They'll be extremely hungry, quite feral. At any point someone from the other boat tries to climb on ours, it's every man for themselves, so best of luck. Now, the other tour guide in the other boats as well, he's actually very prolific down here in the Cavern, guys. He's been known to jump on other people's boats and hold people at gunpoint for sausage rolls. So, Ignore him, guys, he'll go away.
Make me sausage rolls and I'll spare you all. Now you will actually be pleased to know that your tour guide Josh over there is a really big day for him today. Make sure to congratulate him. I'm not sure if he's told you. Okay, I'll just get past. I'll tell you in a second. Okay, so I'm not sure then if Josh has told you, but it actually is his birthday today, first of all. So make sure to say happy birthday to him.
Happy birthday!
But also, it's also another really big day for Josh today, and that is like I say, keep it family friendly. Okay, so what's the story then?
Warning about the halfway house. We're kind of stuck in here. I need your guys' help to get us out. So if you put your hands on the ceiling, gently push the boat backwards to get us out. That'd be greatly appreciated. Now do watch your heads. One word of warning. As you are pushing the boat backwards, remember that back wall.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
You had one job, guys. Nah, mess around, don't worry, that was always going to happen. Now, guys, the boat is slightly leaning to one side. For some reason, people have moved over to the left slightly. Please, some people move to the right hand side. Oh, that's perfect, guys, thank you. And we'll continue.
Yeah, they go the no deal.
So cheers, guys, for the help, and we'll continue in the tour. So where we just pulled into was the halfway house, where the miners would store their tools, their beer, used as a safety hole. I'll expand on that last part in a few seconds, but directly after the halfway house, the hole on your right hand side, that is the bellows hole. Just remember that for future reference, that is the bellows hole. Now guys, after the bellows hole comes one of my favourite parts of the tour, it's a bricked archway. Please feel free to put a brick inside here. It's quite a lot warmer than the rock around. That's for a very unique and special purpose. Brilliant, guys. Now, for those that touch it, you just got a good feel of something that's quite warm. Now that's because that's the foundations for the male toilets. Please feel free to have your hands on the person next to you. Don't worry, I'm messing around. There's no toilet. That's actually the second vein of lead the miners found down here. It's the Longcliffe vein, and it's directly below the Longcliffe hill. Now, it was so successful, it went all the way up to the surface. But with it going all the way up to the surface, the miners realised they made a massive mistake. They left a hole at the very top, which allowed the system to flood. With it flooding down here, it's extremely hard for the men having to carry the rock back up to the surface through the water. So, that's also the original point when they put boats down here. The boats were a lot smaller than this one, however, and made of wood. The miners realised very quickly that all the men and children were busy mining. They couldn't push the boats backwards and forwards, so they got their wives to work down here with them, pushing the boats backwards and forwards doing a technique called legging. Have any of you ever heard of the term legging it, like running away? Heard of this really well? It actually comes from this. So the women get to the front of the boat, their backs pressed against it, their feet pressed against the ceiling, pushing the boat back and forth like so, having to transport any material or anything the men may need back and forth down the system. Now, I'm going to stop doing this in a second because it does look like I'm talking out my arse. That's not a sign anyone needs to see. Now, you guys see these cylindrical grooves all over the ceiling. Now, they weren't just using pickaxes down here, they were using explosives. There's about 15 of these holes every 8 inches. They take about an hour each to dig out. After that, they put in black powder. It's a cheaper alternative to gunpowder. After that, they put in a wax bung to secure everything. Then put in the straw fuse. Once the straw fuse was lit, the miners had 20 seconds to get away from the blast. 20 seconds. Now, I mentioned earlier, the halfway house was used as a safety hole. It's used as a safety hole to get away from that incoming rock that will be travelling towards them at roughly 500 miles an hour. The further the miners stood behind me, the further the halfway house, their safety hole to get away from that incoming rock, got behind you guys. So they needed another safety hole, so they went to their boss and asked him, please can we have another safety hole? Give us 2 weeks of paid work. You can get one dug. Boss said, sure, okay, but on 2 conditions. First one being, it's unpaid work. Second one being, you have 2 days instead of 2 weeks to dig out this hole. The result of the hole is coming up on your guys' left-hand side in the next 5 seconds. Now, again, 5 to 10 seconds. Now, 5 men, 3 children, and all their tools had to fit in this hole to try and escape that blast travelling 500 miles an hour. And the boss genuinely thought the hole was big enough. Now, I'll let you guys be the judge of that. Now, come up in the next 10 seconds or so on your left-hand side. Now, we are moving a little bit slow today because the boat's quite full. So, yeah, my apologies, but it's on your guys' left-hand side. Right then, guys, 5 men, 3 children, all their tools in that safety hole. Yeah, very generous. Yeah, we've done the calculations and that hole is roughly the same sort of size as a London flat. Yeah. Realise very quickly, you're not going to fit anyone in that hole, the miners realise this. So we went back to the boss and asked him if they could continue digging in there to make the hole bigger. He said, no, you're wasting my time and money, you need to find lead. So they continued digging until they hit another vein of lead. It's coming up on your guys' left-hand side in the next 3 seconds. It's called the poor man's vein of lead. It's called the poor man's vein. They only found half a bucket's worth of lead in it. Now, it's also home to Dershire's smallest and only beach. Half a bucket's worth of lead in that hole doesn't really make sense the size of the hole. It's quite considerably bigger than the safety hole. It's because they lied to their boss. They told him there was more lead in there than there actually was, so they could continue digging in there. Now, luckily enough, the boss never found out that he was lied to, so he allowed them to continue digging directly behind me. Back there where that bright white light is at the end of the tunnel, and no, that is not your impending doom, that is Speedwell Cavern itself. We'll hop off in there, and I will show you around. Now, I need to secure the boat at the very end to make sure it's safe for all of you to get off, so bear with me while I do. all around here, so it's not been too major. But with heavy rain, this tunnel will completely fill. Completely. Oh no, we don't operate when it's flooding. Boats won't go through it. Most likely sunk at that point anyway. So no, I'll show you where the water will be from as well in a second. Right then, guys.
വേറെ നേരിൽ പോയത് ഭയങ്കര വേറെ സ്ഥലത്ത് പോയായിരുന്നു ചെമ്പ് വെച്ചിരിക്കുന്ന സ്ഥലത്ത് ആ അവിടെ ഭയങ്കര തണുപ്പത്.
Anyway, as I was saying, you see where the miners have been. Look up here, guys. Those are the footholes the miners put in the walls. Got too steep, so you put in a ladder. That's the original ladder. It's over 200 years old and made of solid oak. They kept going in behind the two boulders at the very top. It's the only bit of lead the miners found in the cavern itself. About 3 buckets with that. Very disappointing. They needed more lead, so they dug another tunnel down here to try and find some. This tunnel here, now that is the Park Canal. They dug for 250 metres, then broke into 14 miles worth of natural cave systems. The miners didn't like going into the natural cave systems, however, because they believed they were dug out by the devil himself. So they didn't like going down there. And then behind me is the piece de resistance. That there, I can't really see much at the moment, so I do this. As if by magic, let there be light. Now that is Speedwell Cavern's bottomless pit. I'll tell you why it's called the bottomless pit on the way back. That's the Cavern itself. But now if you guys want to wander around, take photos, please feel free. If anyone's got any questions, definitely free to ask me. I'm happy to answer. Now guys, do what you like. Don't worry, you have to be down here for 20 years for it to have any sort of effect on you. You guys are here for the one tour, so you're completely fine. You get the same dosage as eating a banana. However, we do have a tour guide that has been working down here for 20 years. And he's starting to look a bit like Gollum. But apart from that, he's fine. No, on our way back, we'll be going past the Bellows Hole. The hole after the halfway house. Now that hole was dug out by the miners because they didn't have an industrial fan like we further down the system. So they dug out the bellows hole and sat 2 young boys in there, maybe 13 years of age. Sat them on something called blacksmith's bellows. Basically, massive pumps used to stoke fires for blacksmiths. Now what they thought they were doing was circulating the air further down the system. And that they were achieving. But they were also pushing all the cigarette smoke and all the blast fumes back in the miners' faces, making it extremely hard for them to see and breathe down here. Now I'm able to demonstrate to you guys what the visibility would have been like for a miner. So imagine trying to find a black rock on the walls for lead in water that is 1.5 meters deep and 3 degrees, with explosions going off around you and thick smoke in the air made of cigarette smoke, blast fumes, etc. Now imagine all of that, and this is your visibility for 12 hours a day as a miner. So you, sir, with your torch on, can you turn that off a second? Turn off your torch a second. Brilliant. And the other tour guides have a little bit of a tradition to do with that other boat. Now, the other people in it, as we go past, we like to scare them a little as we do go past. We like to tell them stuff like, oh, there's sharks in the water, or there's a hole in your boat, or just take the mick out of the other tour guide. And me and the other tour guides in the past have gone to more extreme lengths to have a bit of a laugh and a joke. Like me and my best friend Felix were down here together. We thought it'd be really funny to scare everyone in the halfway house a little bit as we went past. Because we just spent the best part of 3 hours in the cabin doing maintenance. So we were bored. So as we went past the people in the halfway house, we laid completely flat in our boat, turned all the lights off. As we went past, we started booing at them. Now Felix ramped it up a notch, and he shouted, "You're all going to die!" Now we thought it was quite funny, got to the top of the steps and started laughing. And that's where we were approached by our boss. Now he said to us, "Why are you two laughing? What have you done now?" Now we knew sooner or later he was going to find out what we'd just done. So we told him. To our surprise, he started laughing with us till his face dropped. He said, "Please tell me you didn't just do it to that tour group." We said, "Yeah." "Why?" He said 20 minutes earlier, an elderly man had just explained to him he'd have to take the tour steady because he had an unstable heart condition. Now, very worried about this poor man's health, we waited for him at the top of the steps. Luckily enough, he finished his tour, got to me and Felix, and collapsed at our feet. We thought we just killed the poor man. Felix ran off screaming, until the man stood up, laughed at me and said, "Ha, my joke was better than yours." Obvious reasons we've never repeated that one. It's left me and Felix slightly scarred, so yeah. Now guys, on our way back, you can see there's a boat approaching us. Now that boat will be pulling into the halfway house to let us pass, but before it does, I'll tell you the first half of the story to do with the bottomless pit. When the miners originally discovered the bottomless pit, they thought, what better place to dump their waste rock from the far canal than the bottomless pit? They really just couldn't be bothered to take their waste rock from the far canal, through this tunnel, back up to the surface. So they threw their waste rock into the bottomless pit. So much so they slowly started to realise, no matter how much rock they threw into the bottomless pit, the water level would never rise. This didn't make sense to the miners, so they came up with the only logical and scientific explanation for what was going on. The rock would sink to the bottom of the earth, where it was eaten by the devil. Which can tell you this is true. Really not. The rock would get thrown into the bottomless pit. The water got pushed out through little holes in the sides of the walls, dispersed across the valley. The miners had no idea about this, so they came up with the devil's story. Now guys, see the other boat in front of us. It is going to make its way into the halfway house and let us pass in a few moments. On the surface of it, and what he saw was all the rope floating on the surface of the water because they hadn't attached lead weight to it. Now he told them to repeat the process and stop being idiots. Now they did this, came back to Mr. Harrison an hour later with a real answer on how deep it is. It shocked him because I can tell you guys that Speedwell Cavern's bottomless pit is an amazing and astounding and awe-inspiring 11,000 millimeters deep. It's about 11 meters deep. Now you guys cover that better than Mr. Harrison, who was fuming. He couldn't understand why it was so shallow. It's a pretty simple explanation. All the waste rock the miners had thrown in from the far canal that I mentioned earlier had filled it up. If the miners hadn't thrown in all that waste rock, it would have been about 111 meters deep. Which you can tell you that's the case now. That waste rock isn't going anywhere anytime soon. We're getting to the end of the tour very shortly, guys, in the next few moments. A few pieces of information I ask you to remember at the end, guys. First one being, I'll secure the boat at the very end to make sure it's safe for you all to get off. Bear with me for that for just a moment. And at the very top, guys, at the end of the tour, there's a black bucket. Please put all your hard hats in the black bucket for me. Makes it easier for me to gather them at the end. Apart from that, guys, we're gonna have to end the tour on a bit of a bad note. Do you remember those 106 steps? Oh yeah, they're still waiting for you. They haven't gone anywhere. But guys, take your time. He's going up the stairs, genuinely. There's no rush. Take your time. Now at the bottom of the steps, there's a blue bucket. Now if there's any spare change floating around in your pockets, that's weighing you down going up the steps, feel free to throw it in that blue bucket. That'll help me feed my 3 wives and 13 children. But on a serious note, thank you ever so much for coming down to Speedwell Cavern. Have a great rest of your day. A safe journey home, and thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Now, I'll secure the boat at the end. Everyone can get off. Bear with me for that. I'm going to finish my birthday off with a pint when I get to the surface, so I can't wait. Yeah, so to be honest with you, I'm probably just going to go home and then go to the pub with my mum. My mum and my sister. Apart from that, I'm just gonna, actually my I'm a twin, so my sister's going to be celebrating it with me. There's no escaping that, I don't think, so Right then, guys, I'm securing the boat. Bear with me for just a moment. But the boat is... I really do appreciate that. Thank you very much. Cheers, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.